It's a beautiful day to blaze some good. A beautiful day to blaze some good. Would you be kind? Please light mine. All right. Well, welcome to Beans and Greens. New background. Kind of Marvelous Captain America feel. It's not what I was going for, but it's there. Anyway, so for this episode, it's this is a trying one for me because this is the third time I filmed for this fucking movie. Now, everybody knows and hears what's going on in the Epstein files and all that bullshit. And one of the things that we know is now, of course, the part I'm getting ready to go into is more of the salacious side of the whole Epstein stuff, and it's honestly a lot of the focus has been on a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, but it was enough getting them on, just the regular shit that that was reported. But I mean, this next stuff is just a little bit more exciting. So essentially, what this next movie we're talking about, it shows them, and when I say them, it's puts a little bit of a light on who they are. So of course, we're not going to get now. Of course, see, like, this is fictional, right? But we don't get real names of actual people in a sense, but we get who they are. We get their sort of, how do you say that, their lot in life. So we can sort of infer, or just use what we see in life. So what's represented as them in the movie, we can look in actual TV, look in actual news media, and all different types of like blogs and all kinds of like videos made on Epstein stuff, right? And just not even just the Epstein, just sort of the billionaire ruling class. We can sort of infer who those people are from the movie, right? This, as far as, again, like I said, the positions that they take, right, or the positions they held in society, and this shows them. This really shows them on their end, on their turf, and it's really sort of a. It's scary on one hand because it shows them at their nakedest, right? And that's when that's when you really, see what a person's about. But then it also shows how we as just normal people brush up against that and are affected by that. So the movie in question, Eyes Wide Shut. Now, this movie, I mean, of course, it's a movie, right? So we don't we of course, again, most of us think of these movies as entertainment. But not only does this put a light on basically them, and again, we can infer based off what we see in the movie, and I'll sort of go over a description of that. We can, based off, we can tell who they are in real life, like I was saying before. The thing with this is, it's when you, I always gotta sort of try to frame this in the best way. So when you watch the movie, you're just going to see a tale of somebody who brushed up against the wrong crowd, right? you see somebody who doesn't understand the magnitude of what this person sort of falls into. So it's a whole storyline, right, that leads to one point. And so just going how it goes. So you have Tom Cruise, right? His character's a doctor. Now, being a doctor, of course, there's a lot of money involved, but he's a doctor in New York. And when you talk about New York, you're talking about deep pockets. And when you're someone who is trying to, it doesn't even, because when you see the movie, he has that doctor arrogance to him, which he sort of applies to every situation he's in. Which, being in New York, that's something that you have to learn some street smarts. And the name of the movie being Eyes Wide Shut shows. And that is basically saying this motherfucker has no street smarts. So, let me get into it. Tom Cruise's character, doctor. Now, as we find out, he's a doc. He does personal calls for a lot of rich people. And how the movie starts off, right? Him and his wife going to this party ran by one of his ultra rich guys, right? We'll call him just the rich guy. I mean, they all have names, and you know the names, but really, the names are inconsequential because it's really, honestly, it's the journey and all of sort of the scenes that we get into. That's the part that really makes the movie. So, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman go to this party. Now, this is one of these ritzy, like, formal balls that the rich people seem to have. It just always seemed kind of boring when I look at it in movies. I've never actually been to one, but based off of what you see, these it may not be as boring as I think, especially, you're the person that runs and you get access to all these high class women. So anyway, Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, they're going to this ball of sorts party, greeted by the host, which is the ultra rich guy in which Tom Cruise does these house calls for. It was him and his wife. So they go into the party after talking to the guy for a minute, and they part ways for a moment. So this is where you see things are twisting a little bit, because you have Nicole Kidman over here, right? The housewife. She starts to drink a little bit because she's basically at this boring party. So she goes to the table where his drinks are. Tom Cruise is pulled in a different direction. He's the doctor. He's sort of not saying a big deal, but people kind of know him because he's helped people out. So this is where you see in this world lines are crossed, and I'm not saying that crossing these lines necessarily signs of evil, but yeah, it's definitely something that would, if I was in that position, I would be I would be very attentive to my partner, and I might even feel the need to be like, to interject, because Nicole Kidman's character, she's propositioned while drinking by one of these rich guys at the party. But then to the flip side, Tom Cruise is also propositioned by these two models at the party. So, I mean, this was going on, and they were seeing it because it comes out later on. Even though they departed from each other, they were seeing it. Again, it's important because this is where you really start the depravity. All right, so what? There's something that pulls Tom Cruise away from the two models that are flirting with him, and they were propositioning hard. He was, if he wasn't married, I think he was getting both. That's how hard they were propositioning him. But he's called by one of the servants of the house, the host, to meet the host in one of these rooms. So then, when you go into the room, now this is an important scene because it kind of comes back later on in the movie. When he walks into this room, the host, he's not with his wife. He's pulling up his clothes, and he has this chick that's like pretty much OD, this blonde chick. Him being the doctor, of course, obviously he's asking the guy the host of the party is asking Tom Cruise's character to help this woman out. She OD'd. Speedball or some shit, I think they mentioned. Which is like what, coke and heroin? What the fuck? Anyway. So, we go through this sort of ubiquitous, big word, ubiquitous party scene. And now we fast forward, and obviously neither Nicole's character or Tom's character did cross that line. Again, the only reason why I brought it up as something that's important is because it's just the tone for the movie. You see where the movie's going. Now, of course, we fast forward to after the party. The couple's now in their home, and they're partaking of one of my favorite pastimes, which is the smoking. Of course, rich people smoke herbs too. Just more of them need to speak the fuck up. At least here in Florida. I mean, come on. Why? Florida doesn't have recreational? Anyway, so now they're in this intimate discussion, getting lit, and sort of grilling each other about their dalliances. If I could use that as a word, right? So they're grilling each other about what was happening. Now, keep in mind, she didn't see him go to the doctor. She saw him with the two chicks, and then he disappeared. So, of course, that's the discussion. What happened? Then, they get into this deep couples argument, and it comes out during this argument that she was about to bone some other dude on him, and it was something that was like a very, I guess it was very sort of she was pulled into this almost as if she's was sort of pulling into that situation, as withdrawing from her marriage. It's a type of a deal. But it sends him into a tailspin, and of course, when you get into that sort of a situation, what do? You leave. So here starts the journey. So already, we see that there's some weirdness going on. I mean, it's some really weird shit going on. I don't know. I've never dealt with any stuff like that, but I mean, it's there. I mean, the party alone, when you watch the movie, You know, you see that party. Like I said again, it's like on the surface, it looks like just a normal party, sort of boring. Everybody's all in their tuxes and drinking wine and being polite. But under the surface, it's a fucking fuck fest. I mean, yeah. Okay. So Tom Cruise is on his journey, walking the streets. You know, he's trying to clear his head, see what the he's like. What the fuck? Now, shit. Now it's through this journey that he starts to see the world that he's brushing up against. Now, okay, so first thing is, at that party, he ran into a friend who wasn't in medical school with him, but he left medical school to pursue music. The guy tells him about this gig he has after the party. So, of course, that's where Tom's character ends up, and this is some of the things where you see. So, this is this is where who you know comes into it really comes into sort of it's like who you know can drive the direction of your life. Now the reason why I say that, because again, during this journey, he's brushing up against these things, right? So and I emphasize that part because he's not part of this crowd, and this movie, there are consequences, big consequences because of actions. And funny thing, even in actual life, there are consequences of this movie. So he's going to his friend's gig at this. It's like a little bar. He comes in the last song, and he's talking to his friend, and his friend's talking about, catching up, saying, "How are you with this?" There's normal bullshit, right? So he tells him, but I got this other gig. And this other gig is kind of crazy because I don't know where it is until an hour before the gig. And you have to wear a mask and a costume. And I'm blindfolded the whole time. His eyes are wide shut. He's like, yo, I'm there's no way you can leave here without me knowing where the hell you're going. Because curiosity killed the cat. It just so happens, while the friend's talking to Tom Cruise, his character, the people call. And then give him the place and the time and this, that, and the other. The guy gives it to him. Tom Cruise says, whatever. So, just I I know the journey, so I know what's happening next. So just now look at it. One of the things I didn't mention about earlier, he's in New York, so he's in Manhattan. So as he's going through town, he's meeting people, right? So one of the people he meets prior to going to the bar to see his friend play piano, he comes across a prostitute. Just about to smash a prostitute, wifey calls. It's like, where are you? It, that's a boner killer right there. So he brushes up against something, doesn't realize, doesn't understand yet. Now he meets again. He gets the information from his friend. He needs a costume and a mask. He did a house call for someone who actually owns a costume shop. So he goes there, and again, this is late at night, so he's going there asking for a favor, basically. Now, when he gets there, the person who owned that shop doesn't own it anymore. It's some weird, I think he's like French or something. It's a heavy accent. Tom Cruise character, he talks his way into the shop, and the guy's like, okay, I'll sell you a costume. Now during the whole scene of where he's showing him the costumes and presenting what his inventory is, he notices one of his room, it's a little messy. So he comes to find out there's a young girl in the room that turns out to be his daughter, and she's in there with these two men, and they're associates of the guy. He knows them. They work for him. Now, the young daughter's, she's in her drawers, straight up, panties, bra, just that. Now here comes one of those real world consequences I was talking about, because obviously now you see what the scene implies was happening, because the father was inside. He wasn't nowhere around the daughter, and then when he comes, he just so happened to have to go into the shop to sell this costume, and his daughter's in her drawers with these two men that work for the guy. Need no more. He flips out. He wigs out. He's yelling and screaming. He locks the two guys in the room, talking about he's going to call the cops. The daughter runs into the house. Now, real world consequence. That woman, the girl at the time, actually, her name is. But from here, the echo. Her name is Lily Sobieski. Well, I mean, not no more, really. Actually, at the time. Now, this is where this stuff sort of meets real life, because she was always cast in movies where she was the young girl, and she was always sort of put in these compromising positions with older men. And this is sort of not only something that we see in the movie, but this is something that's going on in real life. See, this, like I said, we're revealing, or this movie reveals them behind the scenes at the raw, when they're naked. Because this woman left Hollywood completely because of shit like this movie. So she from what I read in the article, she was so weirded out by putting these compromising positions by grown men. Now in this movie, like I said, she's in her drawers, but she's only 17. In real life, she's 17. She left. She got married, changed her name. She doesn't do no acting. I don't think she even likes to acknowledge it. Like if you see her in real life, and you put two and two together, I don't think she even, just imagine you walk up to her and talk to her about it. She's like, fuck you, and walks off. You know what I mean? That type of deal. But it's just wild. It's just one of those real life consequences where she was so weird. You could just imagine what kind of stuff you see what they had her do in movies. Just imagine what they were trying to make her do or had her doing in real life. That's where we see now what's going on with this whole Epstein files. And this movie was back in the 90s. So it gives you a sort of an idea how long this stuff has been going on. I mean, this is anyway. So this is a rental place. He's not buying the costume, but he gets a costume and a mask from the guy. Now he leaves, but you get the impression that this guy's gonna go and take care of these guys once Tom Cruise's character leaves. Now, here's where the party starts. Here's where the movie sort of comes together. He takes a cab, number one. Now, we'll remember, we were warned or told about this by Cat Williams about these mansion parties. Now, this was a mansion party of mansion parties. Like, the ones that Cat went to were like Diddy mansion parties. You know what I mean? This is the mansion party of the people that own Diddy. So, this was cabs taking him down the area where they're going. I believe it's upstate New York. Has to be. Very scary, very dark, very ominous. Not too well lit. So, he pulls up on the address to they're sort of hulking, like, just sort of, as hulking is the best way I can say. They're dressed up in, these two servants dressed up in, the usual black, like, tuxedo. He gets out, walks up to him, and gives, one of the things he had to have was a password. And if you don't have this password, you ain't getting in. So the friend gave him the password along with the address. So he gave the guy the password. Now, the mansion is so far back on this estate, you have a car to come up and then pick you up and take you back. You're not walking, and there's no carts. They couldn't drive you up there. That's sort of a clue. That's sort of weird, right? Because you're a VIP and you're pulling up to this mansion party, and this is the party of all parties. Don't you think you would pull up in something other than a cab? Eyes wide shut. So this is the part that let him into the mansion. Now, when you go into the mansion, it's this big ass room, and there's like a balcony, bunch of people in masks and big old tuxedo costumes on the floor, and then some up in the balcony. Now, in the middle of the floor, this is where things kind of intersect in my life a little bit. And I'm going to expound upon this. A little stone, so I'm sitting there fucking pontificating. So it's like no wonder nobody's really watching it. But anyway, it's a big circle, a red circle, right? Like a piece of carpet, circle the carpet, and in the middle, you have these naked women lined up in a circle around like this sort of priest guy, and with he's like I'm not sure, I forgot what they call it. Now, this where I said this intersects in my life. This is very reminiscent of a Catholic church ceremony. I used to go to Catholic school when I was younger. I went to the sleepaway. It was like a sleepaway camp. It was like military sleepaway with like Catholic military sleepaway camp. And so what it was is we'd go to this place in upstate New York, and we'd be sectioned off in platoons, and we had little barracks and shit, and we even had these little wooden guns that we would do like drills, and we would do like sort of like it's like parade marching and shit like that. And we'd have church on Sundays, and I was an altar boy, and I wore sort of the similar getup that what the guy did in this movie, and I was the guy that held the incense. So it's basically as we're walking in from behind the basically what's they call it, the rectory, coming out of the rectory, I think it was, going on to basically the stage, and everybody's walking in, and I'm with the incense holder, and you gotta. So in this movie, as I said, this scene is very reminiscent of a Catholic church ceremony in the sense that, with the incense. Now, of course, we didn't have a bunch of naked chicks in Catholic school, but that had been the wildest shit. Now, it's a ceremony, and during the ceremony, right? So one of the things we're seeing, or I think even more importantly, is hearing. To remember, he got the information from his friend who was a musician, a keyboardist that he saw at that gig earlier. It was like a gig at a bar, at that bar. So it was crazy because he goes in, his friend's sitting there, but what happens is his friend's facing away. He's facing the back of the room, so he's not actually facing towards the ceremony. And he's blindfolded, and he's playing the keyboard. It's crazy too because he had like an MPC 2000 playing some other notes. Now, why I said this is very important because the music that's playing is a very, I guess, is disharmonic the word? It's a very off-putting, and the vibration from the music. I mean, not even actually being a real ceremony, not actually even being there. You can just feel the negative vibes of this music. It's very, very, it sort of pulls you in, and you sort of can't pull away from it because the visuals and then the music supported by that visual, it's disharmonic. It's disharmony, if that's a word I could use. So the guy in the middle, he's in red. He's on all red. Very important. Very, very important esoteric color. If you notice, you look at all your advertising, most of the time there's red. Coke, Pepsi, McDonald's, Burger King. There's red in there. Chick-fil-A. I mean, this stuff is not coincidence. But anyway, he's basically has a scepter, and he has this incense. I don't know if it's called a scepter, but that's what it looks like. It's a scepter. He stomps the scepter on the ground, and there's a rhythm, there's a pattern to what he's doing because he's stomping on the ground at a certain point. I'm not sure of the pattern. I'm not sure of the rhythm, but it's something to that. Then he goes by and he starts blessing with the incense these women. Then what he does is he walks over to each one, right? So he stands in front of one, stamps the scepter on the ground in front of the woman. She gets up and walks over, and then grabs one of the people that is downstairs, one of the masked people. And he does that. So he goes one here, and he goes directly backwards, and he does it in a pattern. It seems like it's a pattern of pentagram. Honestly, the pattern I kind of imagine is something that you would see. I think it was more of on honestly, Slipknot album cover. It's like the circle. Not even it's just like a T-shirt or like something I see. I know that it's there. I just really don't want to pull it up because I don't necessarily want to associate the two, but it's a circular pattern, circular red pattern with the pentagram on the inside, but it's like a double, triple sided type of pentagram anyway. That's the pattern he walks. He goes, chick here, stamp, she gets up, chick here, stamps, gets up, and he walks, right? Eventually, all of them get up. One gets up, walks over to Tom Cruise, grabs him, and they walk with the rest of the women. She recognizes him. She's like, yo, you don't know where the fuck you are. You need to get the fuck out of here. And he's like, huh? Excuse me? Eyes wide shut. She warns him a couple more times. Then another gentleman comes over and pulls the woman away from Tom Cruise. Now, keep in mind, Tom Cruise is in this mask, and he has that costume on. He thinks that shields him. Doesn't realize, again, like I said before, like I was just mentioning, he pulls up in a cab. Number one, pulls up late. I mean, what, these people are stupid? But anyway, he starts to roam the mansion. There's a big old mansion party, just like I mentioned. Cat Williams told us about. If you go from room to room, there's different, basically a different party going on. And that's exactly what was here. It was a big, big orgy. There was a different orgy in every room. Now, I think this is more. I mean, it wasn't that the sex scene or the sex that you saw was normal in the sense that, it's just a big orgy, and you just got people in the room fucking, and you got people watching them fucking. It's first it was too much man ass. They didn't show a lot of, man on man, but that party's. I'm just thanking them for that one. Thank you, Stanley Kubrick. I mean, we did get to see a lot of man ass, but so titties too. So I don't know why it's important, but anyway, he didn't realize the world he was brushing up against when he was dealing with these rich people, and that's one of the things that up until now a lot of people didn't understand. You get around somebody who's ultra rich and you're thinking, yippee, they're going to put me on, I'm going to make money. But really, if you're not with them, if you're not one of them, you're basically part of a network of people that they use for things. And you see that all through this movie because they have sort of a network of servants, people that serve them in many capacities, such as in Tom Cruise's case, a doctor, house call doctor. So when you have a naked woman who's ODing from drugs, you can call and be like, yo, hook me up. You know what I mean? He didn't understand that this world he brushed up against. Now he's seeing this world, but he's still not seeing this world. You see what I'm saying? So going through the mansion, he's seeing all these different things going on. They eventually find him and find out, and they confront him, and they have him in front of the whole fucking party. All the people on the balcony, all the people that was fucking, everybody stopped, and they basically putting him through sort of an inquisition. We're back now in the main room with that red circular carpet, and the preacher guy, he's sitting on basically a throne, and they're basically interrogating Tom Cruise. Now during the part where they're interrogating, getting ready to take off his mask and all the stuff, the woman that initially took him and warned him, she stands up and she's like, I'm going to give myself up so you can let him go. And the guy asks her, he's like, do you understand what this means? And she's like, yeah. So they tell him, they say, get the fuck out of here. Maybe in so many words, but get out of here. Do not come back. And never speak of what you saw. You're a doctor from a small podunk town. You've never learned. You never lived. You should have known before you went to where you went to. You should have known by. I mean, I guess what I if I was in that type of situation, would I have known? One, I know for sure I would have never been in that situation because they hunting people like me, or I'm food to people. Basically, I'm not even good enough to be a servant, honestly. So, yay to that. But anyway, I digress. He's leaving this place now, freaked out, but does not understand what the fuck he stepped into. Now, this ritual that goes on again, it's a ritual. See what I'm saying? So it's not just a party. See, again, like I said before, entertainment's not just about keeping you busy. It's not about entertainment. The party is not about party. The party was about the ritual. The fucking wasn't about fucking. It's sex magic. It's ritual. Just imagine what you're thinking when you're leaving a place like that. And we know what he's thinking because he's like, what the fuck, right? He gets home. He needs to find out what went on. He wants to know. He can't let it be. So he goes searching. First, he goes back to find his friend at that where they had that gig. It's during the day. You know, there's no sign of his friend. Now, and this is the guy we're talking about who plays piano. He found out where his friend was staying. It's like a hotel he was staying because his friend was from out of town. You know, when they went to medical school, when his friend basically left New York, and from what he was mentioning, he was living in Oregon, had a wife and kids, and he was basically in New York doing a gig to make some money for the family. So he went to go find him at the hotel. And he found out as he went to the hotel that something might be going on here because the guy in the hotel was telling him, you know, there were some funny things about the fact that when his friend came back to the hotel, he was roughed up a bit. He was beat up. Two men brought him, and they were very scary. Paid the bill and left with him. Eyes wide shut. Ding, 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 ding. Let me leave this the fuck alone. No. He goes back to, remember I mentioned about the prostitute and what he's brushing up against. He goes back to the prostitute's house that he almost boned before wifey called him. And she has a roommate, and the roommate's telling him, you know, hey, something happened. She had some information today that she came out with AIDS. Yay, wifey. Because, see what I mean? This is the shit he's brushing up against. He even goes to return the costume. Now, this is key. Because, like I said before, he had a costume, he had a mask. So, he goes back to the store. Now, this is daytime. So the store's open, regular operation. And what's so funny is because as he goes in the store, everything is calm and normal. He's talking to the guy. He sees the daughter just running around all willy nilly, and the two men, they get up and they left, and everybody's talking all normal, and Tom Cruise's character is sort of taken aback because he was like, "What happened last night? What happened?" And basically, in a nutshell, he implied that services were being rendered without payment. Doesn't necessarily say that, but you get the implication because just as the men leave, they try to set him up with the daughter. He's like, anytime. See, this is that world. This is that world he's brushing up against. Now again, this is where we see the eyes wide shut moment. The motherfucker gets in the cab, and this is during the daytime. He gets in the cab and goes back to the fucking mansion. He wants to find out what's happening to his friend. I did, and maybe I downplayed how scary this mansion is. Maybe I downplayed a little bit how scary the servants are. That's why I said eyes wide shut. That's why it's just taking me a second to. It's like I glitched for a moment, but he gets out the cab and he's standing in front of this gate. And then of course there's camera at the gate, so they see him. I don't know if he sees the camera, but he's looking around. And next thing you see is his car pull up. And like I said, one of these sort of hulking type servants walks up to him and hands him a letter. Letter says, "Leave, never come back." This is your last warning. Now, he knows this is a critical situation because during the course of him looking for his friend, course of figuring out what's going on, he was followed. The guy eventually left, but he knows some shit's really going on. So he happens to get called back to the house from the original rich guy he met. Now, this is where everything is revealed of the world that this motherfucker stepped into, because he goes to this house, and it's the guy, and the guy's just chatting him up, small talk, and then he starts going in. Now, they're in this guy's lounge. He's drinking a drink, and they're playing. He actually has a pool table in this room. He's playing pool. Obviously, the pool table. Then he starts to go into it. He's like, "I know where you are and what you were doing the other night." And Hayes, "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb, motherfucker. I was there at that party. I saw you. I saw what went on." And he's like, "You have no idea what the fuck you walked into, and you have no idea who was at that party." And he's like implying that knowing the faces behind those masks was something that was very detrimental to his health. And the guy's like, it's like, look, you can't fuck around. You're being told to leave this shit alone for a fucking reason, and you're not listening. You're not hearing. You're not heeding. Heeding. Is that the way to say that? Anyway, you don't heed the message that's being told to you. And during the course of this discussion, in the newspaper, we find out that girl comes up dead. And it's the blonde girl from the party. They tried to warn him. And it comes out that it wasn't only the blonde girl from the party, from the mansion party, but she was also the chick from the initial party that had OD'd. And he helped out. So it turns out, and he doesn't come out and say it so much, but it turns out she sacrificed herself. And he's starting to realize, he's like, wait a minute, this chick sacrificed herself, my friend's missing. And he's like, yo, what happened to my friend? It's like, your friend was sent home. So he essentially, he's telling him, this woman didn't get killed, she OD'd, and your friend was sent home. And he's like, he's basically implying, this is the story. I mean, both were killed, but this is the story. This is the story you're going to go with. So, now, think about this, right? You just saw this crazy party. You got confronted, and in like one of the worst ways. Through this journey through the night, you come across pedophiles and hookers, and you almost get AIDS. You almost get killed at this party. Then to come to find out that this rich guy that you've been doing house calls for is part of some sort of group that has these crazy mansion parties. I mean, for me, I wouldn't have had to go through all of that. I wouldn't have pulled back up at these people's house, and after seeing that, almost getting got, but getting away. I'm saying I'm moving state. I mean, I'm doing what I need to get the fuck out of there. And see, this movie has there's real world consequences from the movie, and there's also consequences in the movie as well beyond him getting lectured by this guy. Because now, I mean, the journey is said and done. Right now, it's consequence for not listening. This is where the eyes wide shut comes in, because his eyes are open, and he's seeing it, but he's not seeing it. You see what I'm saying? When he returned that costume to the store, the owner of the store, he mentions like the mask wasn't there. And he's like, yeah, well, the mask was, because he saw the mask, but the mask wasn't. So as he goes home to face his wife, walks in his room, goes to the bed, wife's sleeping, child's in the room sleeping. Because, of course, I believe I mentioned that, but they do have a child. It's a housewife. He notices the mask on the bed, on the pillow next to his wife. It's on the pillow next to his wife. you know, that's one of those moments where I don't really know what the fuck I would do, to be honest. Because now, of course, in the movie, he goes over to the wife and they console each other. I don't think he ever really told her completely what went on, but the last scene we see in the movie, it's Christmas time, so they're taking their daughter to is one of these New York toy stores, and this is back '90s, so it was toy stores back. Toy shopping was different. Obviously we had to go to the toy store. There wasn't the internet to order it from. And when you're in Manhattan, the toy stores out there are just sort of ritzy type of toy store. So that's kind of toy store they were in. Now, they're talking to each other about life and seeing if they're going to keep everything together. And as children do, she's running around grabbing different toys. And she's talking, and you hear the daughter. And you see Tom and Nicole, they're looking at each other. And at some point, you hear the daughter, and then her voice gets faint, and more faint, and more faint. And next thing you know, you don't hear the daughter at all. But they're still talking to each other, but they're laser focused on each other. They will not look any other way. And then it cuts off. Now, there's movie consequence and there's real life consequence with this movie. One of the things that's sort of a conspiracy theory on a movie, with this type of movie, which is really weird because it's like a movie about conspiracy stuff that has actually conspiracy theories attached to it. So one of the theories about the movie is there is a scene that's cut where there is a man that comes up to the daughter and guides her away. So they cut that scene out. So you don't actually see it, but it is implied. Because like I said, and this is clever. This is clever how they did it. Because if you don't know about if you don't know about the conspiracy theory about that, all you're gonna do is be a person that's like, why are you not paying attention to your daughter? I don't have children, but I have nephews, and anytime I went out with them and took them out, I'm on them like a hawk. I'm laser focused on them. Literally, I mean, wherever they were, if I was not there next to them, I was within a couple of feet of them. So I remember the first time I watched the movie, before hearing about this conspiracy theory about the movie, it drove me nuts that they were not paying attention to their daughter. You know what I mean? And like I said, this is a toy store, and this is a New York toy store. I know, it's like R.A.O. Schwartz or some shit like that. So I know the type of crowd. This is a crowd. When you're in any store in New York, you're paying attention to your children, unless they're old enough and you're very confident in their ability to navigate around the store safely and come back to you. The daughter was not that. So it drove me nuts that they're talking to each other, and then you hear the daughter's voice, and then you hear it faint as she walks further away, and then you never see anything about her again, and they're still just talking to each other. I swear, you look at it, they're looking at each other, and they're not paying attention to the daughter at all. So they cut it out, but it's implied in their action. It's wild. It's so wild. When you see the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about, because it will drive you nuts. And then you understand that this scene was cut out. Now here's where the real world consequence comes into it. Because, like I mentioned before, there was that young girl, the Lily Sobieski. I don't really know her name, her married name now, so I can't really give it to you. So I apologize for using her. I mean, she basically ran from that name and that life. Another real world consequence of this, like I said, is this movie basically got Stanley Kubrick murdered, or he committed suicide, I believe, after this movie. Especially, I think it was primarily on what was implied in other conspiracy documentaries and shit about the movie. They just offed him, cut that scene out, and then released the movie. But they didn't cut the scene out. They cut out the literal part where you see the guy guiding the girl away. But it's there. It's implied. Watch the fucking movie. It's there. Trust me. Don't. I mean, on the movie I've seen it, so in that regard, yeah. But don't trust no one that says trust me. So this movie, like I said, it shows them at their rawest, and they allowed this movie to come out. Where I don't think they would think that people would, or maybe they did. Maybe it's because you see now, with all the files that are coming out and all the different stories of what was going on, people think that, it's like they're busted now. They're getting, people are going to jail and release the files so we can go and take these people to justice, and let's get these women that were trafficked, let's get them some justice. And to the ruling class, that's not what this is about. This is about them telling you what they've been doing. They're putting it in your face. Because, I mean, think about it. Who are we going to? I mean, who are we going to who's giving the consequences to these people for the things they're doing? They were doing the same thing. So we're going to pedophiles to put pedophiles in jail. I mean, this whole thing with the former prince being arrested. Who's arresting him? His people. I mean, this is all show. This is all show. Let's let you see. The movie doesn't stop when you turn off the TV. The movie doesn't stop when you leave the movie theater. In fact, the show in real life is so much more interesting than the movies that they put in there. The only thing they do is they put real life and real life events in sort of a fun way. They present it in a way that it's basically a driver of cognitive dissonance, because sure, this shit ain't really happening. This was in a movie. They're not really eating babies. That's some bullshit they have in the movie. They're not really having these ceremonies and these mansion parties, and they're not really doing this stuff. But it's coming out, and of course, they can go after all these politicians and these billionaires, and they can go after all these people, and they wouldn't have to talk about things such as babies and eating blood and all this other bullshit. They can just go off the stuff that we have, But the media needs this more salacious stuff, the eating of babies, to keep it as part of the cognitive dissonance, because you still associate that with something you saw on the screen. You're still associating it with something that can't be possible, right? It can't be tangible. This can't be real. So it's not going on. But they're telling you it is. You see it in movies, and this is not the first movie that I have put on the channel that actually shows them in their rawest. Because even in the movie Rat Race, which is a comedy I mean, it's far field from Eyes Wide Shut, but it still also shows in their nature, their true nature. So it gives a view to them into them from their perspective. To be honest, yeah. Like I said, this movie, the the name of the movie is very important as well. That was one thing that was brilliant about the movie. Just it wasn't just the scene at the party, at the mansion party, at the ceremony. The name, Eyes Wide Shut, because your eyes are open and you're seeing, but you're not seeing. Your friend tells you they go to this party. He doesn't even know the address until an hour before, and he's blindfolded and you have to wear a mask. That's a very hard proposition for me. Even when I was young, I put myself into some crazy situations, but I still had this little sense in me. And then even after you go to the party and you get out of the party, I'm doing everything I can to not actually be part of the party ever again or deal with anybody. This is some serious shit. And now we all know now the depths of depravity these people will go through. It's crazy. It's like a story of sort of a person who sort of reached far above their level. They brushed up against it, far against their level, and took it too far, and in the end paid a really high price. Watch the movie. I have this in all my movies now. I'm gonna start putting on all the movies that I review. I'm gonna start putting on Patreon and actually watch it. So this one's up right now as I publish this one. So you'll be able to go see the movie, and I can go over everything as it happens real time. I mean, you'll see. It's like a herb, basically a herb. A geek, a nerd that becomes a doctor and is brushed up against high society and doesn't realize how treacherous high society is. It'll eat you up. It almost ate him up, and he only had to sacrifice. So that, and at the end, you see the discussion at the end foments my theory. Well, of course, obviously, I also know about the scene being cut, but it reinforces because of the actual discussion. And again, it's just so key that you see them just talking to each other, focusing directly on each other. They didn't look at all to the sides. And the daughter, like I said, you hear her voice, and it gets lower and lower and lower, further away. You don't hear it at all, and then movie's done. Anyway, fuck that. The day is long, sun is hot. Might as well smoke if you got some pot. I'm out. Go check it out on Patreon. It's there. You can watch it. What I'm talking about. Maybe shoot me a subscribe. You know what I mean? It'll be there. I don't give a shit if you even like the video. Just subscribe. Subscribe and dislike the video and talk shit. I didn't disable the dislike, so if you don't like my shit,